Hey yo, it's Gluck, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play the wrong notes. Let's go! Okay, so here we are back in Ableton. And before we get started, I'm just going to say I'm going to do a better job of keeping my screen away from any important information. I know that that's been an issue in the past couple videos. Hopefully, I don't mess up this time. But to get into the meat of today's topic, we're going to be talking about modes. So I've written this project. I'll start here so that we get a little bit of the verse and a little bit of the drop. And as you listen to it, try to pick out which notes are actually different in the bass line as they are from the chords. So there's the project. And so to answer the question from before, which notes are different, chances are you probably had a hard time being able to tell. But in this song, this section here, the verse, is in minor, and this section, the drop, is technically in Phrygian. Well, what does that actually mean? So when we're talking about modes, another word that we can use is key signatures. This is definitely one of the more complex concepts within music theory, but if you can understand this, then you can really figure out how to play any note that you want in any piece of music. I found this chart online that I think perfectly outlines modes and the different ways that they're made. We're already familiar with two of these modes, even if these names don't look familiar. The first one is Ionian, and the second one is Aeolian. And you probably know these as major and minor. And if we go ahead and look, we can see that these are essentially algorithms to make our key signatures based on which note we're starting. With Ionian, we would have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So in order to make our modes and test the algorithm, we already know that C major is going to be all of the white keys. So if I go ahead and click in all of the white keys here, we have our C major scale starting on C, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. A half step is just one step between each key, and a whole step is going to be two steps between each key. And if I wanted to make Dorian the next mode in our chart, all I would have to do is start on D and press all of the white keys until we get up to D. Just like that. So our new algorithm for Dorian is going to be whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole. And if we look on our chart, that's exactly what we said. So now in order to make all of our modes, all we have to do is keep pressing in all of the white keys until we reach the same note that we started on. Now, once we've made these modes, the last part is going to be highlighting all of them and dragging them back down to C. So that way we're playing C, but in this case it would be C Ionian, and then we have C Dorian, and then we have C Phrygian, and so on and so on. I went ahead and made all of the modes, and then I changed the colors of the MIDI clips so that we can clearly see which one is which. But starting from left to right, we have our Ionian, and this is our classic major scale. Then we have Dorian, then we have Phrygian, then we have Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. Now, for this video, I'm only really going to focus on Phrygian. That's the most useful one for us when it comes to writing EDM. And the reason why is because half steps are really nice to work with when it comes to writing catchy bass lines that are really simple but also have a lot of motion. With Phrygian, we still have essentially a minor scale, except the only difference is that the second note in our minor scale has been pushed down a half step. So now we have C sharp instead of D. And so when it comes to switching between something like minor and Phrygian, which is what we've done in the song that we just heard, the reason we can do that is because the rest of the scale is essentially the same. And so if we only change one note, and in this case it's the second scale degree, it's not really going to sound out of key, but it will change the vibe. What I mean by that is in this verse here with these chords, all of these chords are written in E minor. And we can see that in E minor, the second scale degree is F sharp. But when we look at the bass line here, we're not using F sharp, we're using F. And the reason is because it's just one half step above E, and so sonically helps change the vibe of the song so that this section is a bit more intense and dancey. Now, if I had written this bass line in E minor, then we would move this F up to F sharp so that everything is in the same key and that we're playing the same notes everywhere. But let's go ahead and listen to the bass line now that I've changed it. doesn't really sound as interesting. But if we put it down, then now we're in Phrygian. And it sounds a bit more dancey and sort of, I don't know, like spooky club, I guess. And so when it comes to actually using the different modes, think of them like the core of the idea that we're presenting. So the core that we're presenting here is going to be these chords. The vocal is pretty much going to act like a melody. And then I've made all of these little noises here to help fill out some space so that we're not just listening to chords and a vocal. So this is what our drop section sounds like. Now, if we look at the notes here, we can see that we are using F sharp, which means that all of the stuff that we're playing in this section in pink is still in minor. Now, when we get to the part where the bass line switches to Phrygian, all of this is still going to stay the same. And you'll probably be wondering, how? How can it all be the same? Well, that's because technically Phrygian would be a minor scale, because the major and minor part is only determined by where the third is. And if we look and see, here's our Phrygian scale, and if I put our Phrygian next to our minor scale, we can see that they share the same exact third. In fact, they share the same exact rest of the scale. The only thing that's different is this second note. But because we've written the core of our song around minor, that's what we'll stick with all of this extra dressing stuff, and the core idea is what's going to change its mode. So that way we get just a bit of a different feel in the bass line, but we don't actually have to change anything else. Now, swapping between Aeolian and Phrygian, this is a really easy switch to do because of how many notes are shared. And it's particularly popular to do within tech house and other more repetitive genres where we're only using 2 notes or 2 or 3 notes in the bass line. The main point of this video isn't to confuse you and introduce all of these new key signatures where instead of sitting down and saying, I'm going to write an F minor track, saying, I'm going to write an F Locrian track, and really try to push your brain to the limit. The point of music theory isn't to box you in, but to give you a better idea of where you could possibly go once you've started an idea. When it comes to writing this bass line, all I did was pick E, really, and then go up to F and then down to D. And it sounded fun, it sounded dancey, it sounded cool, but then I needed to figure out what else I could do in this verse part here, and also what I could do over top to figure out how I could turn this into a more interesting song than just a bass line with some drums. What I ended up doing was after I wrote this bass line, I went back and I wrote the chords. Since we're starting on E, I knew that that was the tonic of our scale, or the root note. So I had to start on E with the chords, and that's how I ended up writing in E minor. And then when it came to the chords, all I did was write a descending chord progression, and you can see that here. So the song is themed around minor, but that's because I already knew that Phrygian and minor were very close to each other, and this is a really common thing to do. Now, if you're trying to write something that's similar to this, what I would recommend is that you start with just your bass line and just make a really good bass line. Then what you can do is go back and figure out, how do I get into this bass line from here? Or you can do it the other way. There's really no rules. But I guess that is really the simplest way that I can explain modes. It can get really complex really, really fast with modes and the difference between major and minor and stuff like that. But if you want to try doing this on your own, the project file will be on the Patreon, so you can actually take a look at it yourself and steal all these presets or do whatever you want. But what I would recommend is that you start by writing some minor chords, and then when you get to, I guess, the drop, or you go to write a bass line, try writing it in Phrygian and start to try to feel out the difference between writing in Phrygian as opposed to minor. I'm sorry that it's such a short video today, but I really wanted to keep this simple, particularly when it comes to modes, because again, this gets really complicated really fast, and at the end of the day, when it comes to writing music, what you really should be doing is just expressing yourself, and then using the music theory to help figure out what else you can do to either narrow in the vibe or help finish the song, not the other way around. So I hope that this video made sense and was interesting to you. If you liked it, be sure to like and subscribe, bro. Be sure to check out my Drank edit that comes out today. I'll put a link in the description below. Go and check out my Patreon and my other videos. I put all of the project files in their entirety there so that you can download them, use them as song starters, templates. Anything you can scavenge from them is free game, and we'll see ya in the next one.